found microplastics. This is a term that's been widely now in social media, and the concern of microplastics, especially for female bodies. So the study found microplastics in ovarian follicular fluid, raising concerns about environmental impacts on reproductive health. So how can women decrease exposure to endocrine disruptors in everyday life?
Yes, this is such a good point to touch on. So endocrine disruptors are basically any chemicals like microplastics that interfere with your body's ability to make, use, or eliminate its own natural hormones. So it can like block certain receptors, or it can trick your body into thinking that there's more of something, or it causes like this whole cascade of things. So the most common sources are, I'd say, like cosmetics.
Okay.
Yeah, cosmetics are a huge one, so makeup. And your skin is an organ, and it's really great at absorbing things. Yeah. So what you're putting on your skin, even like lotions, especially the smelly Bath and Body Works, or like a lot of scented candles release things into the air that can mess with your hormones. How you're storing your food. So like if you're cooking, or like cooking your food. So if you're reheating your leftovers in a plastic Tupperware, that's going to be a big one. Unfortunately, you just have to assume that things probably have endocrine disruptors in them unless you're intentionally avoiding it. Our 21st century modern lifestyle is so not set up for hormonal health, especially for women. So I do have a whole podcast episode of this at the very beginning. I think it was number maybe 3. Maybe number 2, that just goes through endocrine disruptors and how to start swapping those things out without stressing yourself out. And I'd say another big exposure too would be clothing. This is something I think is starting to be talked about more, especially in the endocrine disruptor space. But if you're like polyester, rayon, spandex, those are all, or it's like, oh, this is 80% recycled. It's recycled what? Plastic. So it might feel like fabric, but at the end of the day, it is also just plastic that you're wearing on your body. And so that is something that I also would encourage people to switch to natural fibers as much as you can, especially your underwear. So like that is going to be a really, really big one of how breathable your fabrics are. Also, ironically, especially like the fitness industry, like how often do you see natural fibers in like leggings or sports bras and things? It's always like synthetic.
Can't think of one.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, totally. So I've seen it mentioned, but not talked about super in depth, even in the hormone space, is like the clothing that you're wearing. So,
and I'm sure like speaking of clothing, like detergent and like dryer sheets and all that stuff, like the plastic packs that our detergent is in, or the container that our detergent is in, like all of those are plastic.
Yes, there's a lot. And I will say, like, after now, like, looking back at the last few years of slowly swapping things out one at a time, it's so much nicer now having a baby because we don't have to buy any special stuff. Like, we could use our same detergent, could use the same lotion, like, all of these things, like, we don't have to make any of these big changes of like, oh, we have to get the baby safe stuff and then we have our stuff. It's like, it's all safe. That's just what I reach for now. Like when we need to restock on something, I don't even have to think about it. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think at the front, it takes a little research, but after that, you know what's safe and you know what you can reach for and that it doesn't have to break the bank. I think that's a great summary of what we just talked about for endocrine disruptors, and important to go back and listen to your episode because I'm sure you go into a lot more detail about what that means for our bodies. So super helpful there. So let's go back a little bit into your social media platform. So how has sharing your story on social media and your podcast impacted others? Are there any moments that have stood out to you in that?
I think it's generally like helping women find like the confidence again in being able to trust their bodies and to understand like, oh, I'm not crazy. That this is like, oh, this is happening. Or when, there's like stories where people come to me and they'll share about how they're like, yeah, I wanted to get my IUD out and like I had to go to 5 different doctors because no one would like let me take it out. And I know, I'm like, really? This is just like a year ago.
Oh my gosh.
And, or, if women are like, they are struggling with fertility and they're looking for like extra support, if they're like, this is what I was told, but I don't know what else to do. And I'm like really careful not to be like, oh, this is what to do. Cause that is for you to explore and decide like based on your values in your life. But to say, hey, these are other options to consider, or here's some other things, like places to learn about what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And that has been like the best thing. Or I taught a couple classes like in person, and there was one to like a homeschool group for girls 8 and up and their moms. And
wow.
The funnest thing was like teaching all of this at like an 8-year-old level. But then all these moms, like they're sitting there like jaws dropped. And they're like, what? And like, I think like how fun it was to see like these girls, 8 to 13 years old, seeing their moms like learn about this and get excited about their bodies and like talk about it more openly of like, man, I wish I do that. Or like, that makes so much sense. Or what about this? How does this work? And like just that aspect of like watching women get excited about like learning about how amazing their bodies are that will never ever get old. Ever. So,
and you're empowering generations, like you're empowering women to know how to talk to their daughters when they have questions when they grow up. And I'm sure that the 8-year-old girls understood that to their level, but they're going to have more complicated questions when they grow up. And now the moms know where to start, or they know like where to start their own research so that they can help to improve their daughters' lives as they get older. That's super neat to see. And I'm sure like you as a storyteller, where you're empowering other women to share their own story as well, because there's value in understanding each other and finding similarities in each other's stories, even if it's not exactly the same. I think we can all find a point in each other's story to be like, oh, I have felt that, or I have a friend that has that experience that I can now encourage her in this way, or I know how to talk to her, I know how to listen to her better. I hope and pray for women to hear this and feel confident that they can make a change quickly, that's healthy, still healthy for their bodies in simple ways and affordable ways. Many people assume that once menstruation ends, conversations around cycle health are no longer relevant, but hormonal health continues to play a huge role in overall well-being as we age. So how do you approach education around menstrual and hormonal health for women in their 40s and beyond, and why is it still so important at that stage of life? You just talked about the joy of seeing women, like their minds being blown about, I've never heard this before, and why has this never been taught to me before? So why do you think that this education is so important, even like when our period ends, quote unquote?
Like you said, the generational impact is so key. I've had people reach out where they're like, yeah, I'm like getting really close. Like I'm perimenopausal, so cycle's on its way out, but I have a daughter and I want her to know all of this. So I'm learning everything I can now. And I applaud those women. Honestly, like that is a fantastic mission. And I would say that like if you're looking at your own health, like going into menopause, that how your cycle has been your whole life is going to impact that. So like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be this awful, terrible, like symptomatic thing. We see like the hot flashes and the mood swings and like the hair loss, like that's actually not normal. It's just very, very common. But like a lot of period symptoms that we have earlier that you probably were not listening to because you didn't know to listen to them.
Yeah.
So, I'd say the better you take care of your cycle now, the better that stage of your life is going to be, and a lot smoother and honestly very seamless. Like it can be totally symptom free. And if you are already at that stage of life, there's so much you could do to still support your hormonal health. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a stage that is often like you're often given like synthetic hormones to like quote unquote help that process. And I feel like that's just par for the course, but it's like, again, like women have been going through that for how many thousands of years? Like
the beginning of time.
Yes, it's the beginning of time. Like our bodies have been doing this for a very, very long time. I think they would have figured it out